I've had so many people ask me over the last couple weeks if I've seen the movie The Sound of Freedom. So I finally went to see it last week, and I definitely wanted to just share kind of my thoughts after getting to see it. So first of all, I've been working with survivors of human trafficking for the past 12 years. I've worked in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, India, Scotland, and primarily here in the United States. And I run a safe house here locally for survivors of sex trafficking, and I've been doing that since 2017. So I've seen a lot of survivors, and I've heard a lot of stories across the world. And what happens to every single one of these victims is tragic, and it needs to stop. I'm grateful that this movie was released because it is bringing a lot of awareness, but awareness doesn't accomplish anything without action. So I'm really hopeful that the people that have seen this movie feel stirred and feel called to do something. Our organization is one that we are able to impact lives globally as well as here locally. Other organizations are maybe just in local areas or here domestically, while others are maybe focused internationally. But research, do the work of researching and finding out if there's an organization you could partner with. Maybe you can get involved and volunteer. That would be what I would recommend. And then there are organizations you may want to give your money to. But please spend the time getting to know that organization well and make sure that what they are offering is what you line up with. I encourage people to volunteer with us first. Get involved with our organization and get to know the stories for yourself, get to see the work yourself, and then decide if you want to give financially. To me, as someone who does like to support other organizations, that's how I like to do it. I want to see what they're doing for myself and not just blindly give money. So that would be my first recommendation. I have to say that for me personally, watching this movie was really, really challenging. I didn't expect to have the reaction that I had. I've seen so much and heard so many stories over the years, and I always pray over my own heart that I never become calloused, that this never gets to a point where I have to self-protect so that I don't feel stories. I always want to be present with a survivor if she's willing to share anything of her story with me. I want her to feel like she has a compassionate witness to what she's endured. So I never want to become hard-hearted, but I have heard so many stories over the years. And so I went into this movie expecting to probably see the same things as what I've already seen myself and not have a huge emotional response like maybe someone who hasn't been exposed to this would potentially have. But I actually had a very overwhelming emotional response for a different reason. I had to participate in the investigation against my own father back in 2014 and resulted in putting him in prison where he'll be for the rest of his life for ongoing sexual abuse of children. So I did not even anticipate how much of a role or how much of a focus there would be on the perpetrators. So that was very confronting for me, honestly. To see the faces over and over and over of these men looking at these little children lustfully was such a difficult thing for me to process, because over and over I just kept seeing my own father. And just seeing and recognizing the innocence of these little children, that they're being sucked into something that they don't even understand. They do not have the power to do anything to protect themselves. They're so tiny, and they're being abused and taken advantage of because of their inability to defend themselves or protect themselves. So that was really, really difficult to see. I am so grateful for the organizations that are out there that are working to rescue and recover victims. I'm grateful for law enforcement that does this on a daily basis. I love our law enforcement partners. I'm grateful for the aftercare organizations that do the long, hard work of helping individuals heal from the trauma that they've endured. That's where I would say the real work begins. When we see operations like what was represented in the movie, those are difficult, they're complex, they're risky, all of that is involved. And I am grateful for the men on our team and on other teams that will do that work. But the longest work comes into play once they've been recovered. So I just want to remind you that we can see someone get rescued or recovered out of that and feel like, oh yay, victory, the job's been done. But honestly, that's just where the work begins. It takes a long time to recover from the things that survivors have endured. And I've heard the most horrific stories. I don't even tell people the things that I've heard because you don't want that in your head. You don't want to know that human beings are capable of doing that to other human beings, especially children. It's hard to know those kind of things. And I think as a society, we have wanted to bury this issue. We haven't wanted to look at it because it is hard. But I just want to tell you, it is real. It is happening. It's happening every single day. There are countless victims. I don't like to give stats because we don't really know the number of victims. It's really hard to determine how many people being trafficked right now when survivors don't even identify as victims. Many times they don't want to tell you. They don't want to claim that title of victim. And so it's really difficult to get stats that are accurate. But I can tell you that we see them on a daily basis. So they're real and they're out there. And they're right here. That's one thing I think the movie portrayed. This was something happening in a different country, but it's happening in our own nation. And that's the second part that I think is really important for us to realize, is that this isn't an over there issue. It is a right here issue. I live in the DFW area and we work with lots of law enforcement entities and other organizations, and we're constantly talking to one another and trying to get help for different situations and survivors. So it is real and it is happening right here, and we do need everyone to, first of all, be aware, to be educated, and to be involved, to be active. It doesn't do any good to have this big emotional response with nothing to do after the fact, but just live with this information that, oh my gosh, I saw this movie and now I know this horrible thing is happening, but I don't know what to do about it. The only thing we can do in that situation is just to try to numb ourselves again unless we get activated. So please see what it is that you could possibly do. But I think for me, the thing that I really wanted to leave everyone with that happens to watch this video is that yes, there are traffickers. And what they're doing is appalling. They are making money on a daily basis off of someone else being sold and being used over and over and over again. They need to be stopped. Secondly, you have this group of individuals who are being trafficked for whatever reason. They may have gotten in some way exploited as children and now they're adults and they're still in that life because they've never been able to break free. They may have come upon hard times and they didn't know what else to do, and someone approached them with an offer and they felt like that was the only thing that they could do to provide for themselves and to stay alive. We don't know why people end up in this. Everyone has a story. But what I do know is that the biggest pool of people involved in this are the purchasers, and that's who has to be stopped. There would be no more traffickers, there would be no more victims if there were no more purchasers. So for me, that's what the movie represented, is the countless men who have become addicted and perverted in such a way that they are now willing to pay to have sex with children on a daily basis in our nation. That's who needs the biggest help right now. We have got to seek the Father's heart and ask Him to please turn the hearts of these men back to good. If that doesn't happen, this doesn't end. I don't want to be doing this work for the rest of my life because it continues to grow. I want to actually have to get a different job because there's no more trafficking that exists. That would be a dream for me. And if we don't reach the hearts of men, this doesn't end. Men have been inundated with pornography. They have been sold a bill of lies when it comes to this in any way being actually satisfying. It goes against God's design in every way, and it's led us from one level of perversion to the next. This is why my father is in prison, because he went down this path. I just want to encourage men, if you are struggling, please get help and get out of this trap, because it will lead you places you do not want to go. It will carry you there quickly, and you'll lose everything. If you aren't caught in this trap, start praying for those that are. And this isn't just men, women are caught in this as well. We need to be delivered from this stronghold of sexual perversion and sin as a nation. Because if we don't, there will only continue to be countless victims, and I don't want there to have to be another movie produced about this issue. I would rather see redemption stories and restoration stories than to continue to see that we have to keep going back in to rescue more. That's my prayer. Those are my thoughts on this movie as someone who's been working in this space for over a decade now. I hope that this movie will change things. I hope that people like you that are concerned, that are passionate, that care, will do something about it, will lock arms with us, and that we could end this.